Annas was a high priest of the Sanhedrin. Annas was the son of Set, and was appointed high priest between the years 6 and 15 after Christ by the Roman Quirinius, until the Roman procurator Valerius Gratus removed him from the position and later granted it to his son-in-law Caiaphas. After that, Annas watched as several members of his family became successful as high priests. In this video, we will be talking about the life and death of Annas and Caiaphas. Before starting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Let's start. The Roman occupation of Judea had brought with it a system of government that left local leaders little room for maneuver. This led to a complex relationship between the Jewish religious leaders, who were responsible for maintaining order in the Temple of Jerusalem, while the Roman authorities sought to maintain political control and maintain peace. In those times, the Temple of Jerusalem was the spiritual and religious heart of Jewish life. Every year, thousands of pilgrims came there to offer sacrifices and fulfill their religious duties. This gave it powerful symbolism and high political value to those who controlled the temple. In this context of Roman occupation and high religious tension, Annas and Caiaphas emerged as influential religious leaders, both belonging to the powerful Sadducee sect. The Sadducees and Pharisees had a different view of the scriptures. For example, the Sadducees did not believe in the resurrection of the dead or in the spiritual world, while the Pharisees did believe in the resurrection and the spiritual world. The Sadducees tended to be rich and bought the most powerful positions from the Romans. The principals and the high priest were Sadducees, and they held most of the positions in the Sanhedrin. It is for this reason that Annas and Caiaphas, being Sadducees, managed to occupy the position of high priests. This made them central figures in Jewish religious life and gave them power and authority over the affairs of the temple. The relationship between Jewish and Roman religious leaders was complex and often tense. The Roman occupation generated a constant fear of revolt and loss of privileges. This tension provides the backdrop for understanding the actions and decisions of Annas and Caiaphas, especially in relation to their participation in the arrest and trial of Jesus. So with this historical context in mind, we will continue to explore who Annas and Caiaphas were. Annas was appointed high priest in AD 6 during the rule of Quirinius, the governor of Syria, and held the position until approximately AD 15. During his time as high priest, Annas established a system of appointment in his family, thus ensuring continuity in religious power. His control over the high priesthood gave him considerable power in the temple in Jerusalem. This position not only made him a religious leader, but also a key political figure, as the temple was a center of power and control in Jewish society. Annas also controlled the temple tax and the currency exchange. In Luke chapter 19, verse 45, we see that Jesus expelled them from the temple, accusing them of turning it into a den of robbers, thus prostituting religion. The business of animal sellers and moneylenders in the temple was the best business in the city. The Jewish Talmud declares that the house of Annas was cursed, rich and unscrupulous, along with the corrupt leaders of the priesthood, whose presence defiled the sanctuary. It is believed that this regret was due to his plots to plan persecutions. On the other hand, Caiaphas was married to the daughter of Annas. Both families were rich and belonged to the aristocracy. Caiaphas was appointed high priest around the year 18 AD by Valerius Gratus, and his appointment marked a key point in the biblical narrative. Like his father-in-law Annas, Caiaphas assumed a leadership role in the Jerusalem temple and in the Jewish community at large. His relationship with Annas is interesting and significant. Although Annas no longer held the position of high priest at that time, his influence was still palpable. Caiaphas, by marrying Annas's daughter, became part of a priestly dynasty that maintained considerable control over religious and political affairs in Judea. One of the famous phrases of Caiaphas in the biblical narrative, it was after Jesus raised Lazarus. The news that Jesus had raised Lazarus from the dead reached the council, and at the council, Caiaphas asked the famous question found in the Gospel of John, chapter 11, verses 49 and 50, "You know nothing, nor do you consider that it is expedient for us that a man die for the people, and not that the whole nation perish." This statement by Caiaphas referred to the belief that the death of Jesus would prevent a revolt and protect the interests of the Jewish religious leadership. Caiaphas' statement was like a prophecy that Jesus would die for the entire nation, and not just the entire nation. The nation, but also to gather into one, the children of God who were dispersed. The biblical story narrates that after Caiaphas' declaration, everyone in the council from that day agreed to kill Jesus. During Jesus' ministry, tensions between him and the Jewish religious leadership, represented largely by Annas and Caiaphas, gradually increased. Jesus preached a religious reform that challenged some of the teachings and practices established by the religious leadership of his time. This put him in direct conflict with the religious authorities. It was in this context that Jesus was arrested and brought before the high priest for questioning. First, Jesus was brought before Annas, and then before Caiaphas, who was the acting high priest at the time. These interrogations marked a critical point in the biblical narrative. During the interrogation, Annas and Caiaphas sought evidence against Jesus to support accusations of blasphemy and sedition. However, Jesus maintained a largely silent stance and offered no convincing defense. These interrogations led to the decision to send Jesus to the Roman governor Pontius Pilate to be tried and condemned. Importantly, Annas and Caiaphas played an active role in the decision to accuse Jesus and in pushing for him to be sentenced to death. Their political and religious influence greatly contributed to the subsequent crucifixion of Jesus on Mount Golgotha. After the resurrection of Jesus Christ, Caiaphas refused to accept the evidence that Jesus had risen. For this reason, he imprisoned and wanted to kill Peter and John, and later participated in the death of Stephen. Caiaphas also authorized Saul to arrest any Christians he found in Damascus. Caiaphas played an important role in the persecution of the followers of Jesus, since he considered them a threat to the religious and political authority of the time. However, around 36 AD, Caiaphas was deposed by Vitellius, the Roman governor of Syria. At the same time, Pilate was also deposed. Finally, it is said that Caiaphas was miserably murdered and dragged away by the Romans during a Jewish revolt in the year 36 after Christ. The tomb of Caiaphas's family was discovered in 1990 while a road was being built in an old cave hidden on the slopes of Jerusalem. And on the other hand, crazy Annas died, banging his head against the walls after verifying that he had killed the Messiah. And as an additional note, the grandson Annas was the last high priest before the destruction of the Second Temple by the Romans in 70 AD. Being closely associated with the temple in Jerusalem, the Sadducees disappeared from history as a group after the temple was destroyed. However, the legacy of the Pharisees endured. In fact, the Pharisees were responsible for the compilation of the Mishnah, an important document with reference to the continuation of Judaism beyond the destruction of the temple. In this way, the Pharisees laid the foundations of today's rabbinic Judaism. And so we are reaching the end of this video. We hope that this information is very useful to you. Tell us, what do you think of these two men? Leave us your opinion in the comments. And without further ado, now I say goodbye, and it will be with me until the next video.